Okay. Greetings, everyone. Welcome again to another session of the Three Voices. We have a guest on this session. Her name is Meera Ganhdi, a dear friend, author of the book Three Tips, founder of the Giving Back Foundation, philanthropist, social activist, mother, and dear friend to many, not just us. Meera spends much, if not most of her time between New York, Bombay, Dubai, London, and Hong Kong. And she is wizened not only from travels, but from introspection. Please, Meera, join us.
Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be on the show. Thank you for including me today. And I'm delighted to be here. A little bit about myself. My mother is Irish, my father is Indian. So I have perspective of both the East and the West. I've lived both in India, in Ireland, in London, in the US, Canada, as well as in many parts of Asia, Dubai. Mm, Turkey. So I have sort of a global perspective. And I really do believe that it doesn't matter where you live, all humans are the same and they are all looking for love and respect and peace. A little bit about myself. When I was 16, I had gone to Mother Teresa's Ashadan to volunteer for a school project. And I had so much fun that evening. I asked the nuns if I could go, that was Friday, if I could come back on Saturday. And after that Saturday, I went back every single Saturday of the last 2 years of high school. And of course, worked with and got to know Mother Teresa extremely well. And she did have a remarkable impact on my life because I understood very early on that there's a lot of joy in service, and I could also see how joyful and how simple and uncomplicated Mother Teresa was as a human. Of course, at 16 I didn't fully understand how much it had impacted me, but in later years of my life, when I choose things and I do things, I definitely feel I was greatly influenced by that period and that experience in my life. I then started the Giving Back Foundation in 2010 to be of direct service to humanity with education as a cornerstone of our mission. And that evolved into um, creating positivity by getting involved with the Woodstock Film Festival and many other media houses to make sure that the message of peace and positivity was being disseminated. Because even 20 years ago, I was afraid that the media might be used to influence and put out incorrect messages, which in some way has come to pass. The third mission of our foundation is mental wellness. And to that end, we have put out a audio visual podcast. We have this book called Three Tips, which has done very well. It has been translated into 16 languages. It's around the world. And more recently, we do Uplift New York, which is a yoga festival in New York on June 21st, where everyone gathers together as a community. We do yoga, we meditate, we have free lunch together, we have music, and try to put like minded people together in a live setting. So that sort of brings you up to speed about me. And I'm excited again to be on this podcast.
I would ask you, it certainly is exciting. And I've never had the opportunity to come anywhere near Mother Teresa other than a video. And I've always considered her, and I don't know if she was actually sainted yet, but, certainly, or if she was canonized, but she certainly had the spirit of a saint. And that what a wonderful joy you must have had being next to her. You brought up something that was pretty interesting, and you seem to live a life by it. The joy of service. That's what you said. and it's interesting, Mira. I think the three of us probably have some regrets in a certain way. I'll certainly speak for myself in that we haven't done enough to give back. And the three voices are part of our attempt to kind of start giving something back and sharing and see where that takes us. But can you tell me what what did you do with Mother Teresa? What was that joy of service? Just a little
Okay.
deeper, because I mean that's such a wonderful experience that no one will ever have again because she's gone.
Well, very simple. I would take the bus from Kulaba, where I lived, from Regal Cinema at 8 o'clock, and take the Baikala bus to Baikala, where the Mother Teresa's Ashadan was located. Getting there at 9, the first job was right away to start feeding the kids breakfast. As you know, most of the kids in the ward were handicapped. That's why people used to leave them outside at the gate or in the ditch to be picked up because they didn't want to take care of handicapped kids. So feeding the children was a process. It would take about an hour and a half, and there would be 6 to 8 of us. I mean, there were 5 or 6 nuns and me. We would feed the children. So even as you feed them, the soft porridge sort of thing, either a hand or a leg would because they don't have control over their limbs, but I had learned very skillfully how to talk to them and feed them and then move on to the next child. Some of them were fed right in their big cots. Some who were more healthy, we could take them out of the cots and sit them down and feed them. After we fed them, then it was time to bathe them. And giving them a bath was actually very fun for me at 16. We basically had a hose because we didn't have so many shower stalls. So we had a hose. And so we would hose the children one by one. One would put soap and one would hose. Sometimes I would be on soap patrol, sometime hosing. I always hoped that I would get the hosing one because it was great fun. After we hosed them, then the different nuns would quickly wrap them into blankets and take them inside because we washed them outside, where in on the under the uh, sort of a canopy sort of thing. And then once that was done, I would put away the pipe and go in to start drying them and putting clothes on. Again, the clothes were sort of just thrown into a pile. After they were laundered, they were just put into a pile. They were not really folded and put into closets because you had to change the children 2 3 times a day. They soil themselves so much. So I would find whatever clothes fitted whichever children I was dressing. I would carefully dress them, then carefully brush the hair. Some babies, I had to braid the hair. And then after they were had their bath, then it was playtime, which was always fun. The healthier kids could bike around. Sometimes I would push them. Other kids would sort of try to play catch on their butts, trying to like move around the room, but it was always very physical. We had balls we would throw to them to play for the eye hand coordination. So we would have an hour and a half of games. Then by 3 o'clock, it was usually time for their nap. So we had to give them some water to drink. Some had it, so those who could swallow would get it from a glass, the others through bottles, and then pat them dry, put them into bed. And I used to put my hands through the cot and pat two children at once. They all wanted to be patted by me. They would all call me, Meera Didi, Meera Didi, Meera. They all knew my name. They all would call me. Then I would go from one cot to the other, patting them to sleep. And then it's remarkable. They would all just suddenly fall asleep, like 3:15, 3:20. They would just fall asleep, at which time I would come outside. Normally, Mother Teresa would be kneeling at Mother Mary's statue at that time to pray. And everyone knew not to disturb Mother at that time. She would just be engrossed with her rosary, praying to Mother Mary. If she wasn't, then sometimes I would chat with her. Once or twice, she called me and she would give me like a big hug and say, you're doing good, and she would laugh with her big teeth at me. And are you going home? And we would just have some, very very nominal chats. The one experience she I asked her, what is in the other ward, Mother? Because we were not allowed to go there.
Oh,
And she said, Do you want to see? I said, yes. She said, okay, I'm going to take you. So she took me by the hand and we went into the other ward, which was the ward of old women. And the old women, some of them crazy, some of them had just been brought in with maggots in their hair. And she could see really that I was not ready to work there. Quite scary. But she had that ward of older women who they picked up from the street to take care of, and the older men's ward, a lot of people screaming and distressed. And she said to me, yeah, this is where they are, because those wards were always locked because they had they had adults working there. And she said, you're never to go there. You will just work at the children's ward, which was closest to the gate. So I would work with the children, and then that's it. I would go home, and the next Saturday come again. And that was what I used to do. Pretty standard every Saturday.
That's amazing. That's amazing. It made me think of an experience I had, or number of experiences working with Ram Dass. He had an organization called Seva, which means service. And then he encouraged us. I lived in LA to form our own Seva group, but we interacted with him, and so I had a couple of interactions with him that was a real connection of spirit. Like one time, just a hug, I felt like light, it was transmitted into my body. And then another time, much later, I was at a conference where he was after he had a stroke. And happened to be next to him, and I was chatting with him. And I said, Ram Dass, I feel sad that you had a stroke. And he looked at me and he said, your sadness, my stroke. So he wasn't sad about it. You know what I mean? It really struck me, that one interaction. So what I wanted to ask you was there a particular interaction, or maybe something you felt later, even after you worked with her, that really touched you? That touched your spirit?
Well, I think one interaction I think has definitely shaped what I do today. Ashadan was generally sponsored by Unilever. So one Saturday, mother told me in 3 weeks we're going to have the Unilever executives here, and we need to create somewhat of an entertainment. A stage and a stall will be here. The chairs will be here. Unilever is going to call about 100 guests. And what do you think you can do? And I said, well, I can definitely create a couple of dances. I took my little uh, cassette player, and I had a couple of different dances with them. And my mom gave me a bunch of scarves and outfits. And one day my dad helped me bring the rest of the stuff by car so we could dress the kids up in clothes. And the kids did really, really well, really well. No one forgot anything. Even the person dancing, Tommy was dancing on his belly. It was just great. And the Unilever people were just delighted, clapping. And then I was leading the kids down from the stage to let them go back into the ward. And I was the last, and mother stopped me and she hugged me and she said, this was the most beautiful event that you helped plan. God bless you. And I think ever since, and that was my first experience really of creating an event. Ever since then, as Thomas will tell you, I just love doing events. I mean, I
Wow.
see the joy in bringing people together. I see the joy in helping people be their best. I see the joy in the audience enjoying it. It's like win-win, and I've become really quite good at it.
The
Nice.
yoga event you were talking about in June, you know, how many that sounds like an event. How many people go to that, just out of curiosity, and where is it? I mean,
So it's held in Central Park at Rumsey Playfield, which is summer stage.
yeah.
And to put into perspective, the United Nations has been doing Yoga Day for the last 8 years. They get about 450 people in the
Wow.
lawns. And Times Square has been doing it for 31 years. And through the day, they get about 1,200 people, about 100 people an hour. We were the rookies for the first event of Uplift New York. We got 5,000 people.
Whoa.
And it was capacity. There was no place for anyone else to come in. We had the yoga mats, and it was just a huge success, which really tells me New York City is looking to come together as a community. People want to do yoga, they want to meditate, they want to eat vegetarian food, they want to talk to people under the trees, they want to listen to music that is calming. They don't want anything like I did not allow my team to sell a t-shirt, a water bottle, nothing. Even the yoga mats that were out there were free. Like if people want to take it home and practice, they could. Because I truly believe freely you received, freely you'll give. I paid for that event because no one, I couldn't get a sponsorship. This year, I'm looking to get a sponsor. But I think the world needs more of this camaraderie and
Yeah.
this feeling of support from each other.
Yeah, they have it. They have the Hanuman Festival here in Boulder. I live in Boulder, Colorado, and it's an annual yoga event that probably draws about 1,000 people. It's fabulous. People come from all over the country.
What's the name of your event? Just so anyone listening, if we hear it before, that those maybe a couple more will join. What's the name of
The festival is called Uplift New York
okay.
25. Last year it was called Uplift New York 25. This year it'll be called Uplift New York 26.
Nice.
And it's always held on summer solstice day, which is June 21st, 2026. It happens to fall on a Sunday this year.
That's excellent. That's it. Thomas, have you a question? We're
I do.
dominating.
I'm just a couple of thoughts, Meera, that came up while you were speaking. I think that people are divided by wants. They're not divided by needs. Our needs are pretty much the same. It's our wants are where we differ. And I was thinking while you were speaking about Mother Teresa and the joy of service is in satisfying needs, not wants, because wants can be endless, but needs are pretty well restricted to basics like food and water and good health and education and a roof over your head and clothes on your back and things like that, which if we're going to be contributory toward bringing people together in a more enlightened life, a more enlightened world, it is going to be based on needs, not wants. And what I find is that there's a clear perception of need in conscious presence. That is, the more we try and escape the myopic catacombs of the mind and ego and be more in the present, needs are more apparent in our perception of reality than wants. The more time we spend in our head translating reality rather than actually living it, we tend to be more focused on wants. And what you were describing as I was listening to you, Meera, about Mother Teresa, it sounded to me like she focused on needs. And I just wanted to emphasize that to my mind was one of the greatest contributions she made.
But also a very valid call out, Thomas, that in fact I see in our world today that our society is so well developed that really our needs can be quite easily met. I mean, food is not that expensive. Um, Shelter. Now we have a lot of places to gather where there's Wi-Fi. Um, our needs can be very easily met. And I see for myself when I'm living in the present and I'm very conscious, I I don't want too much more because you become so satisfied within yourself. And I think those who are happy and satisfied and in peace and find contentment do not look to fill their lives with too much other of the wanted stuff. Because sometimes we look for that wanted stuff when we're trying to fill a hole in our lives, like something is missing, or we're sad and we think another car could fill that or another something could fill that. And it's really not so. We need to just be more conscious. And that I think is so much the key to enlightened living, to live consciously in every moment, and literally pull ourselves back every moment consciously. And once we start doing it, it becomes almost muscle memory.
That is
You
put, beautifully put.
um, is that your, or could you tell us a little bit about your practice? Like, how do you stay conscious? How do you
So
cultivate
I have quite a
that?
developed meditation practice. I do the Deepak Chopra meditations. His meditations are, I do the more advanced ones, which are 42 minutes, but sometimes I'll do three of them and I'll meditate for 3 hours in the morning and another 2, 3 hours at night. It just depends. When I was in LA the last 2 weeks, I was at the ocean and I was meditating almost 6 hours a day. 3 hours in the
Nice.
morning, then I would walk to the ocean and do another hour. Then I would bike. Then in the evening, I would watch the sunset, do another meditation, take in some of the salt, and then do another meditation at night after my bath. So it depends, but uh, at a minimum, I meditate 3 hours a day. My goal is to be constantly bringing meditation into my being so that it'll remind me to be conscious. And I think it's getting better and better. I feel calmer and calmer. I feel solutions come more easily. I feel I'm softer, I'm kinder, less judgmental, more in peace. It definitely helps calm the brain waves.
Do you
I'm
think
inspired by
that,
it. I'm inspired by that.
oh,
Go ahead.
do you think that, part of the three voices is that we all don't always see everything exactly the same way. And while I've been a student of meditation for the last, I was recalling with a spiritual leader today, 52 years of meditating, that there are days I can't squeeze out much more than 15 or 20 minutes. And, I've always asked the question, uh, first off, accepting and believing that meditate one cannot lead this conscious life. One cannot lead a truly enlightened life without some type of meditation, without some internal focus, whatever it is. But my question is, do you really think that so many hours dedicated to it? Are those hours taken away from daily living? And to me, I believe that truly enlightened living is being more in the world than being, inside the head. And that's not to pass judgment in any way whatsoever. It's more a question because when I get a chance to talk to someone like you who, follows such a wonderful practice and it works for you, I like to try to understand it more. I mean, I can't, I don't know that we could really ask, what do you think about or what do you meditate on? I don't know if that's even a proper, a question. But I mean, do you ever feel that you're spending more time, quote, meditating inside your head than perhaps out there? When you were a young girl with Mother Teresa, you gave such an enormous, wonderfully amount of time. Are we not, and all your activities right now, do you feel that that's your source of joy? That, I mean, I'm asking why so much, I guess.
Well, that's because you're assuming that when I meditate, I'm sitting in a lotus cross legged with my eyes closed meditating. But that's not always the way I meditate. I mean,
Ah,
I could meditate in Venice with a mantra in my head, walking, for example, which I did, walking to the nail salon to get a manicure and a waxing. So I meditate on the way. And then
ah.
after I have my manicure, pedicure, walking back, same thing. Or in the morning when I biked from Venice to Malibu, I instead of putting on earphones and listening to music, I'm saying a mantra and I'm very aware of the sun rising and people, and I'm doing my mantra and I'm riding a bike getting some physical exercise to Malibu and back. There are many ways. Sometimes, I go to Manhattan very often from the Hudson Valley, and if I don't have someone else in the car, I will be driving, but I'll have a mantra in my head where I'm actually saying the mantra in my head, and the whole drive is a meditation. So there are many ways that I've learned to bring meditation into my life.
I have to say to you, that is one of the best answers I've ever heard. And I'll tell you why, because that's exactly what I was asking. And I was, you're right, visualizing sitting down in a lotus or somewhat reclined position. And I think you answered even a better question because I believe that's the practice I utilize. That I sit down in that position maybe 15 minutes on an average 30 to 40. But after that, I believe I take that into the day. And what you just said is terrific because that to me truly is enlightened living. To be able to ride your bike, drive your car, get your nails done, just be in nature, even walk. I think that's what Rob does a bit, don't you, Rob? You walk
Oh,
through.
definitely. But I do find that uh, like in the last year or recent years, I've been meditating more and in the morning and in the evening, most days. Not 3 hours, but half hour at a time. That's explicit meditation, various types
Right.
of practices. I try to be I try to be mindful, during the day as much as possible. But I find that um, lengthening the practice somewhat and deepening the practice has a benefit. There's something.
It has a very big benefit because, for example, when you're so present and someone calls you and they start saying something gossipy about someone else, you're just more aware. And when you're aware, you're able to take control of the conversation and make it kind and sort of switch it and say, well, maybe it wasn't that way, or you're able to s- stop it. Um, and to lead, I think enlightened living is to deal with all creatures as if they are, just divine lights of God, to constantly remind yourself, or when there's a friction situation, to handle it with a in a high vibrational way. I mean, something happened to me. One of the guys working on my property, he parked his van right outside my two garages. And so when I was backing my car out, simultaneously I opened the garage. So there was no way for me to see that his van was parked there. It was a huge van, literally not even this way, but sideways. So obviously my car started beeping. I stopped short. And then I called him and he was furious. He's like, oh my God, you backed into my van. Obviously, he should not have been parking there. I mean, Thomas knows I have a huge parking lot, but I dealt with him extremely calmly because I just finished a meditation and I was like, let's look at it together. Let's see what we can do. You should not have been parked there. But I know that if I wasn't calm, that would have been a completely escalated, unnecessary, you know,
Right.
situation. So I think that if we're doing this, each of us is doing it, the whole world will be de-escalated. Everything is so fast and so hectic and so frenetic that we have to show
Right.
this leadership to the next generation.
I think that's an amazing. Go ahead, Thomas. Were you going to say something?
It's very difficult to argue when there's nothing to argue about. And the thing about being in the present is that there's no past or future tense. That is, you don't bring into the present what you're defining that gives you agony or grief or anything else. So the more in the present we are, it is an automatic reduction of conflict. You're right, Mia. If there was a way somehow for the world population to grasp the importance of conscious presence, the conflict level we experience in the human world would come down huge. because there's no justification for it in the present.
You know, you hit it on the head precisely, and maybe even a little smile evolves here because part of the path to creating that is, you know, what I always say. Uh, I live detached as the observer. When one can, as you even said, Mira, enter into the discourse or contact with another from a calm state, free from the, if you will, effect of or feelings of conflict, okay, or negativity, when you're able to sit back and say, let me listen to you. Why are you this way? You know, okay, when you're able to sit back and detach yourself from a automatic, instinctual or emotional response, we're able to do exactly as you say, Thomas, live in a more peaceful and non-conflicting way. And when I do believe meditation is part of that path to creating that mindset. And you know what a great example you really had, Mira, about backing into someone's car. You know, that's one of the most stimulating, aggressive things that happen in the world. That people get so activated, road rage, cut someone off, or something like that. You know, I read a book a long time ago, and I wish I could remember the author, but it was called Zen and the Art of Driving. And I was always, as a young man, and even perhaps some remnants of it remain, an aggressive driver. And I realize how wrong that is because there's no reason to be in a rush. There's no reason. If someone cuts me off, I don't say thank you, but I do say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry you feel that, you don't have to watch. You don't have to be careful. But we do remove conflict. That's precisely how the world will be so much better, Thomas. You're right. You're right.
I don't know if any of you have watched some of these programs. There's a program we were watching recently on the dinosaurs, extinction events. It's a really good program, but one of the things that struck me is how little time we're here for and how extinction is on the menu. Everything on Earth goes extinct, everything, eventually. And so we have
Even races and humanity.
well, we yeah, I was going to say we have the gift of human life, which is a certain amount of I don't know how it is for other animals, but we have self-reflection. We know we can observe ourselves and study ourselves and better ourselves through such studies. But do we recognize in that how little time we have to better ourselves? Because it's really short, seriously short. I mean, we're here for just a blink. This is one of the things also about conscious presence is that the moment is new every moment. That is, it's a creation extinction event, the present, every moment. And when we are more conscious, the clarity that comes with how brief our time is here makes
Mhm.
it a little more urgent for us to be more present more often. And like you said early on, to join or become part of the joy of service. That is, like I tell my sons, don't do anything for yourself that doesn't benefit other people. Not that you think only of other people. Of course, you're thinking of yourself, but you want to also benefit other people through your actions. And I don't know a better way to do that than conscious presence.
Yeah.
A slight counterpoint to that. I was watching a show about Sid Caesar, the comedian, and he was, groundbreaking TV comedian. He was also a very troubled soul, an alcoholic for many years. But he lived to a ripe old age, I think late 80s, early 90s. But he was being interviewed and he said something about how he finally became friends with himself.
Oh, that's a good one.
And self-acceptance, be your own friend. That's an important thing. It goes a long way, I think. If you can be friends with yourself, you're more likely to be compassionate toward others. Because there is a sense to which service can be, an obsession. I'm not saying that's you, Meera, by the way, and so I think it's important to just pay attention to that one.
One could get lost in that kind of thought, Rob. In my mind,
Any thought, but
be a friend to yourself. Yeah, I get it, but you're also talking to a very troubled soul, or not talking about. Those that suffer from alcoholism or addiction or whatever kind of mental malfeasance. Um, are not enlightened souls. They may have the spirit inside of them, and it's up to sometimes people like us or others and Mother Teresa and Meera to help guide them out of those conditions. I think Sid Caesar's line, "Be a friend to yourself," it's kind of like the jokes or the sketches on TV, Saturday Night Live, where they look into the mirror. You're a good guy. I really like you. Okay. Well,
yeah, but that's a superficial um, view of it.
no, it's
I
a
mean,
very superficial. It's a comic. That's a comic stance. The
yeah,
one
but
they.
when I heard him say that, and
Mhm.
I saw the look on his face, that's not the sense I got. The sense I got was someone who finally
Overcame the demons.
was at peace with himself.
Well, precisely. That's the goal. That's right. Be at peace with yourself because you know why. Again, it's part of that detached circumstance that you say, I will not let that outside world influence me. I will not, have a drink to solve my problem. I will not take a shot in the arm to get into a more, joyful state. I will use my mind, my heart, my soul. And so I wasn't disagreeing with you, Rob. I was just simply saying that you know, yes, we should like ourselves, but I think we should love all people. Okay. And Mira, I go far much more closer to what you're saying. We need to recognize the essence of godliness and soulness in everything, in a plant, in a tree, in a dog, in a cat, in our friend, in our enemy, even. You know, Let us try to recognize godliness in an enemy and try to, help convert them. And so, yes, we have to be a friend to yourself first before you could actually do that for others. Because those that don't like themselves, those that have a problem with themselves, are running alongside with demons.
Mira, I have another question for you. You've done so much, in service of others, in your own self-reflection and cultivation. Where, what's most alive for you now? Like, what do you see yourself doing? When you reflect on what's where are you putting your attention going forward?
I think as I evolve, my attention goes on to who am I? Am I really living my mission? Are these the right skill sets for me to put out there to help shape things in front of me? And I do remember, Thomas might remember him. There was a very well known Indian actor called Vinod Khanna, who was a Osho Rajneesh devotee, went to live in Oregon with Osho. And so I knew him quite well. He actually married someone from my school. He had come home for a United World College dinner and then they were leaving. But I asked him quickly, I'm like, you were with Osho for 15, 20 years. Like, what is the one takeaway that you can share with me? And I was 32 then, or 33. I just had my, no, young Kabir was one. So I was 33. And he said, be a witness to yourself. Try to always observe yourself, he told me. And I remember thinking, can you believe this? He had like 20 years with Osho. That's all he's telling me is observe yourself. I mean, honestly, he could have given me some real piece of advice. I didn't realize in that moment he gave me the sum total of his learnings with Osho, which was if you can really see who you are and you're constantly present and conscious and you can see your actions and you can understand your mind and you can understand even as you're dealing with people, you can see how you're dealing with people, you will do it at a very, very high vibration. So I'm not there, but yeah, I do float in and out of it. But that is my next step of in my meditation and in my daily practice to try and really come out and look at myself. Even in my meditation, I try to see who I am, look at my truths, look at what I'm doing, and try to be in that way, the best version of myself.
Excellent. I
Nice.
have a question for you that I'm sure it's going to be exciting. You know, we're asking all these things and learning wonderful things. You showed us a picture of your book, The Three Tips, right?
Yes, it's right here.
So, yes. Well, so how about a little chat? What are the three tips? Can you give us a little quick summary of that? That would
Um,
be,
of
yeah.
course, of course. So basically, these are very. I mean, the quick summary is that the book is a collection of my learnings. I say that on the first line. That I've gleaned from my life experiences. And I also write in the book very clearly I believe we all of us, you, me, we have the answers we seek inside of us. And when we're in perfect harmony with the universe and we are eating right and sleeping well and not stressed, we can make very good intuitive decisions for ourselves. But this book is my attempt to shift you if you're a little off kilter. Like I do, I've got 3 tips on hard work. I've got 3 tips on, I don't know which one resonates with you. 3 tips on scheduling travel, 3 tips on ownership. I mean, on ownership, I write that ownership is a myth. While we're on the planet, we have to understand we never truly, really own anything, not even real estate. And when we pass away, we leave it behind. The second tip is ownership is transient. Our belongings are loaned to us by the universe to enhance our lives based on our work, our karma, etc. And we should just cherish what we have. And the third tip on ownership is to welcome it with joy, not with stress, whatever it is. And as you said earlier, not to be attached to things, but to be able to enjoy whatever we have, as their purpose is to bring joy into our lives and not stress. So those were the 3 tips on ownership. I actually got quite a lot of feedback from that, especially when I shared that on a Bombay talk show. Um, then I have 3 tips on creating rainbows in our lives. Rainbows to me are, those joyful moments. They're all very short. This one says, love all beings because love in action is like a beautiful rainbow without end. Accept everything. When we accept things, it's automatically a rainbow, it's solution. Sound, light, breath, everything on the planet vibrates on a certain frequency. When we accept things, it means we are choosing to vibrate on the same frequency of that thing or that problem or that person. And that puts us back into the flow. And the last thing about finding a rainbow is I say serve from the heart, non-transactional. Don't expect anything back, just serve. Because when you serve from the heart, it's a rainbow, because you get to be a part of someone's journey. You get to alleviate their stress. And it's selfish. There's just so much joy in that.
You know, that's the key word. I see Rob or someone thinking, I don't want to take too much time to me, but I think living life with joy is probably the key, second key element, because once one has achieved some state of observation and detachment, free from the influence of the outside world dictating our response or reaction, we then choose to live with joy and love and service. And that, you know, we need to get more into that. We have the three voices discussed, how often does joy enter our life? And I've got to just tell you one little side trip. One of the many things I study is sometimes rabbinical Judaism. And it is, when you take it past to that level, it's a deeply esoteric understanding. And you talked about ownership. And one of the things that if you will, the Kabbalah will say, or the Talmud will say, is we don't own anything. Okay, like you said it, God, and you use the word universe. To me, I would use the word universe. They use the word God, and somewhat interchangeable, that God gives you these things while you're here now, and that you should use them and appreciate them as that. Not that you earned it, but that God gave you the ability to earn it. And so when you start to think about that, you start to say to yourself, yes, we're Thomas, like you said, only here for a little while, you know, and while we're here, you know, let's have a good time and let's do some good too. More often than not, we should do. I really salute you, Mira, because part of my frustration in life is that I haven't had enough time to give back and do some of the nice things like you're doing. And as I wean into later years, I think about more ways I can do things. Like it's just a marvelous path you've chosen, by the way. I completely,
Can I just ask again,
please.
for the quote from your friend from Osho, that the one thing he said? I just want to write that down. I thought I did, but I don't see it here. If I could have that again,
He
I'd appreciate
said, be the observer.
it. Okay. Yeah, because overall there's any system of study that we engage to gain greater presence has to be abandoned for the present. And this is my understanding of what he said to you is that. And I just wanted to get it right.
Say that, Thomas, because I'm not clear what you're saying.
Well, the present is when we to be the observer and not the subject of observation frees us from all the calamity of the subject. And it's difficult to remain in an observer position because we have identity attachments that
Okay.
keep pulling us back into the subject of observation. And you can fill yourself with knowledge, but knowledge is just knowledge. It is not an action. And eventually we absorb enough knowledge to learn to just be the observer or just be present, just be here now or be nowhere, as I said, right? Because I know if I were to distill my 6 decades of study, Mira, I would say the same thing, maybe slightly different words, but everything that we have applied to our studies is not the outcome. That's the application. The outcome is conscious presence. And once you have a very clear understanding that we need to be more consciously here, there's no more knowledge required. There's more effort required. And that's not, that's like Meera, you have programs you do, guys, you too. I mean, part of what we're suggesting to our listeners is that we have to, all of us, figure out how to be more self-observant throughout the day.
Oh, so I was just getting ready to ask you a question, and I think you answered it because my question was, when you quote or as you well identify the being here now or being in the present, when you're in that state, are you equating it to being the observer?
Yes, I mean it's an aspect. It's an
Okay,
aspect
yeah. I just wanted to understand it, but that's wonderful.
Just
because
an interesting observation. Speaking of observation, um, and then I have another question for you, Mira. But one can cultivate observation or witness in a very granular way. See your thoughts and your emotions arising and leaving, and observe the texture of them and so forth. But there's also a sense to which through an observational mindset, what you're observing becomes very spacious. It is very large. It's infinite. There's light around it. So you can see the granular thing and you can see the big thing. And I think it's important to kind of pay attention to both.
yes, yeah,
Um, Question, I know people are people. I've done some traveling, not nearly as much as you seem to have. But in your travels and in your meeting with people, are you noticing any different like I'm sure you meet people that are could just jump right into this conversation, whether they're in Hong Kong or Mumbai or UK or whatever. But are you seeing different flavors as you go around the world? Is it take on a different aspect in some way that you notice, or are you more struck by the commonality of the human being?
No, I find that there's definitely um, universal consciousness. In the 70s, when I traveled, obviously I was younger, a lot of it was about bettering yourself and education. In the 80s, when we traveled, a lot of it was about getting physically fit because of the multinationals, and people were, overweight, and a lot of people were talking about physical fitness. In the 90s, a lot of it was about greed and Wall Street, and exponential money was being made. End of 90s, I think it was all about the dot com and how the web was connecting us. And then in the early 2000s, a sort of paranoia I felt when I traveled. And now I feel when I travel, everyone is talking about energy, frequency, peace of mind, slowing down. So it doesn't matter where I travel in the world, at a certain point in time, those conversations do come up because we are definitely in one conscious bubble. I mean, obviously in Venice, California, there will be more of people that talk about frequency, energy, understand it more. But no, I'm noticing it everywhere. I mean, someone sitting next to me on the plane, same thing. So I think this concept of universal consciousness does exist, which is why so many people are having difficulty sleeping when we are slaughtering children, people in power slaughtering children and abusing young women. And there's like pain and scream and strife, and we're bombing beautiful young men, sending them to war to die. They are 18 and 19, they are innocent, they have no hatred in their heart. And even if we're fighting a war where we say it's missiles and drones, well, the debris is falling into the ocean, killing millions and millions of fish and marine life. And there's a knock-on effect. I mean, we all feel it. That's why everyone is so many people report not being able to sleep. And that's why I think what we are talking about and putting these messaging out, that it's important to meditate more, and it's important to take the energy levels down to homeostasis, is very, very important, so that we can all just, I don't know, take that calm moment to just recover.
Yeah, we need a pause button.
I agree.
War is truly the greatest sin of humanity. There, unfortunately, history and evolution was or is the result of war. But it's like trying to heal someone in the old medicine days of bloodletting, bleed them to heal them. It's it's not the way to go.
No, I'm convinced that enlightenment is the antidote. I mean, if we want to better ourselves, certainly individually, and once we better ourselves individually, the cause or the uses or the tools we use to better ourselves can be made general. And I think that I mean, certainly we strive to do that here on the show and individually in our lives. I just don't see how we can do this. How can we, to conflict is an ego-based want phenomenon. If we start reducing wants and ego perception of identity, it, what replaces that is being here with each other in the world. Like you were saying, man, I mean, you connect to everything. I was having a moment last night where I was just doing some brushing my teeth or something. And just for a moment, I was aware of all that my body had to do to brush my teeth. I mean, just standing there, the muscles, the position of my body, the how I was holding the toothbrush, all of that was aware. I was conscious of it or aware of it within the same moment without any definition of what it was. It was just an awareness of, but within that awareness of was this vision of all these parts working together. We need to somehow, we as a human community need to see ourselves as a part of a whole and not the part being the whole. And this is where ego is misguiding us, because ego sees itself as the whole.
It's very important to have enlightened leadership. And in India, during the 1947 partition and the Quit India movement, I think one of the reasons why we did not have so much bloodshed was because Mahatma Gandhi said, I don't want to be a prime minister. I do not want an office.
Mm.
I want to do these prayer meetings. I want to guide the process. And so he was guiding Mountbatten, he was guiding Nehru, he was guiding everyone in this conscious, calm manner. And they were taking decisions and putting legislation into action. And then Mountbatten spoke to the Queen and had the British withdraw. And it was all done very peacefully because there was one person who was mediating this from a very, very conscious, non egotistical, not wanting any position of power. And those are the kind of leaders we need in the world today.
Well, why is it
Unfortunately, I don't think they're around too much anymore. That's the saddest part. Someone like Mahatma Gandhi was probably one of, even, I don't know, could you say eclipsing Mother Teresa? I think he was probably one of the more enlightened souls of all time, has to be. Dalai Lama is another one of them, in American history. Um, tough one to name, but Abraham Lincoln, to bring warring sides together. And unfortunately, what's happening in the world right now is there are those of all nations, I won't just blame ours, that realize their path to power is by dividing people and putting them against each other. But Thomas, you hit it on the head in asking the question, how do we do it? And I certainly don't have the answer other than the mystical answer of all religions is save one soul and you save the world. And you've just got to do that. It's just,
Political discourse is so intense and coarse, but those leaders, they're out there. Just because they're not stepping forward and advertised on Fox News and CNN doesn't mean that they don't exist. I think they're out there. They're working today and they're coming tomorrow. That's my belief. That's what
I,
I
I,
like
I
to
completely agree. And I'm seeing more and more of these movements mushroom. Normally, when I'm in Manhattan, I get invited to another party or another dinner. I find more and more I'm invited to these evenings. Day before yesterday, I got invited to a satsanga at Bhakti Marg. This leader had just created sort of this space, very white. I go there, there are 50 people sitting on yoga mats, beautiful with a tabla, a violin, a guitar, a harmonia, just doing chanting. And that was from 7 to 8:30 chanting. And then they invited me to have some khichdi. Someone showed up with a pot of khichdi and some plastic cups. I mean, very, very simple, but um, gentle, high vibrational. My daughter's putting out this kind of music, meditation music, high vibrational, loving lyrics to counteract what the music industry is putting out. I mean, I think this is I'm seeing it. I'm seeing it everywhere. I saw it in Venice. I saw it in of Santa Monica. I saw it in Manhattan this week. I see it in the Hudson Valley. By the way, if you want to join, I've been invited to join this breath work every Friday, every other Friday. A group gets together to do breath work on Friday from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. And they do it in different people's homes all over. And that movement is growing. And it's basically just breath work and chanting. And, obviously it's no religion, but people are
yeah,
getting together to do this kind
yeah,
of activity.
exactly. There's a guy named Thomas Hubel. Have you heard of him?
Yes.
He does collective trauma work and he has meditations with thousands of people to really tune in and do some healing of generational trauma and international trauma and so forth. It's quite amazing.
the
Amazing. More than that, it gives us all a chance, those 1,000 people, it gives them a chance to align their frequency, which I think
Yeah,
is the greater importance of these kind of meetings.
exactly. Exactly.
well, the group meditation reinforces each other so that the sum of the parts are much greater, than or the whole is much greater than the sum of the parts.
Exactly.
And chanting is a path that I follow almost every day. Music is the universal language. And, while words are nice and they work, the true, melodies or the true musical notes or tonal frequencies, as you say, are what help lift and align us. And that's a wonderful thing. And Rob, you are right about there are. When I said the leaders aren't here, they have not taken the stage yet, but we are in formation. And it's our job as the older uh, part of the race to help seed these younger souls. It's not so much that Bernie Sanders or someone of that age group or our age group is going to make that change. We've got to help others through this mind growing expansion and togetherness to step up to that stage. And yes, you're right, Rob. It's a growing number, and only hope that it will, happen. You know,
As,
good.
as we come to a close, because it's almost 5:15, first of all, I want to thank you, Mira. This has been wonderful.
Yes.
Well,
been a
thank
joy.
you. Thank you all. Thank you, all
It's
three of you, for bringing me on to your podcast.
been a joy. And I just one last question with two parts, and then we'll close. One part is there anything you want to say to our audience as we come to a close? And is there any advice you can give us to carry this work and podcast forward?
Well, to the audience, I would say keep believing in yourself. Don't get disheartened if things don't happen on your timeline, because to every life there is a season, there's a reason, and the universe is actively interpreting this. So you will be fine. And for this podcast, I would say I really, I like the format. I like the fact that so many brains are and wisdom are contributing to the conversation. Um, I would like the liberty of putting it out onto my e-blast. I've got a very big mailing list. I would love to share this with people. And if you're putting it on Spotify or Apple, I think it would be exciting because more people would have access to your wisdom.
You're
Great, great.
kind, and thank you.
Thank you.
We'll talk about that as a follow-up for sure. That's wonderful. Gentlemen, anything else?
I would say, go ahead, please, Thomas.
Oh, just be here now or be nowhere.
Yeah, well, knows we need that.
Very wise, very wise. Well, thank you, Rich. Thank you, Rob. And thank you, Thomas. God bless
Thank you.
you. And maybe we'll all meet in a breath evening. I'll reach out to Thomas with some calendar dates.
I would
Sounds
very
wonderful.
much
Sounds
love
wonderful.
Thank you. Okay, take
Okay,
care.
folks.
Bye bye.
Good night.